And then I had one publisher left, and he couldn't get on the video, and he was calling me from a Starbucks. And like I could hear the background and stuff, and I'm like, all right, dude, let's do it. It's like, we'll try it. And he's actually the one who signed me. That was actually Yes Digital.
Awesome.
I had no expectations. I was like, this is the last time I'm going to try. It was literally the last presentation I gave, and I got him.
Hey, welcome back to another Scope Creepers podcast. Today I'm talking with Endo, who is he's a developer who got a publisher after having zero coding experience. I talk a lot about that throughout this interview, and specifically there's an interesting moment where he has a prototype for his first game, and he's letting his friends play it, Scholar of the Arcane Arts, and he has to pivot at one point to follow the fun, and he does that by seeing and listening to his friends give you feedback. So that is an incredibly interesting topic I dive into, and more than anything, we talk a lot more about Echo of Extract and how he was able to land an IGN interview through using his background as a full-time sales rep and using those skills he learned in his professional career to dive into and try to make his hobby as successful as possible, or simply put, make the games that he is the most proud of and excited to play and excited to share with the world. That's it. I hope you enjoy this conversation. We hit the ground running, and I hope that comes through this interview. It was amazing to talk to Endo, and I wish him all the luck moving forward. Without further ado, let's get into it. Oh, and I forgot to mention the podcast is now also over on Spotify. There'll be a link down below for those of you who don't want to listen to it on YouTube in your pocket as you're going for a walk and accidentally hitting that pause button in your pocket, and then you have to pull your phone back out and unpause it. So it's over on Spotify. There's a link below. I will be uploading both here on YouTube and over on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, congratulations. I hope you enjoy this podcast. So you reached out to me with kind of a hook here of saying that you found a publisher for your game without any sort of coding experience or anything like that. And I'm really interested to hear about that conversation as someone who has worked with I potentially worked with publishers before, never actually done it myself. I think this is a really interesting conversation to have. So I want to start by asking, why did you work with a publisher? And kind of where did that whole story begin with you?
Yeah. So for talking about how, why I chose to work with a publisher.
Yeah.
Like that aspect. Yeah. So, honestly, I started my game with no coding experience at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like if I couldn't find a YouTube tutorial for an idea that I had, I just had to convince myself it was a bad idea. You know what? You don't actually want that in your game.
Sure.
So I think part of it was a little bit of imposter syndrome. Is this actually any good? Is this any fun? I've sent it to my friends, but I think they just like me and not the game. So I told myself, if I can get a publisher, that would add legitimacy to me, right? And
Sure.
People also, when they go to the Steam page, they're like, hey, this isn't just some asset flip. This
Mm-hmm.
developer actually has a publisher, and it brings weight to your project. So that's kind of why I had gone with that. You were saying too, though, you potentially worked with publishers. What was your experience?
They reached out to me, and it was very much the same way of they reached out to me, and I was like, oh, this means the idea has something, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is also the same imposter syndrome in me where it's like, ugh, is this any good? And then having somebody who's professionally in the industry publishing other games, I didn't contact them. They reached out and they said, hey, we're interested in chatting about it and potentially publishing your game. I'm like, ooh, that's a nice little check mark in okay, this idea has some legs if someone wants to invest in that project. So it's just interesting to hear you come from a perspective of wanting that same sort of check mark and legitimacy. Was there any sort of desire to have funding, or was it kind of just getting to, I guess, get over that imposter syndrome?
So funding was never really an issue for me because I'm totally cheating at this because I actually have a 9-to-5 that's super easy and cozy. So game dev is just a hobby for me that's just taken off. That's why I always feel bad whenever someone's getting to game dev or trying to do what you're doing, which I think is incredible. I could never do that. They're like, oh man, what's some advice? And I'm like, oh, real easy. Just find a well-paying job that's low stress, and then you can do whatever you want. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, cool, thanks, dude. But anyway, yeah, so like funding wasn't really a concern for me, but it was more of the whole, I don't know what I'm doing, I need someone to bounce off of. Like, I didn't understand translations, I didn't understand like QA, I didn't know how to make a good store page. That's the kind of stuff I wanted from the publisher.
Someone to bounce off of, and somebody who has a stake in the game that's not a friend. Like, one of the things about friends is they're well-meaning, but they're also very like, they want to support you in your hobby. And sometimes you don't need someone who wants to support you. You want someone who can help you make the game better.
Yeah, 100%. And I was finding that a lot when I was first playtesting my game, because I noticed they were playing it, and then like I could see on their face they weren't enjoying it. But then at the end, they're like, dude, this is great. You should be so proud.
Yeah.
And then I actually started taking notes of like, I've got 3 buddies who will just tell me to my face my game sucks. And I love them for it. They're like, I send them so much stuff because of it. And they're not afraid to tell me of like, hey, you know that thing you've been working on for 6 months? Delete it all. It's trash.
Yeah. It's hard with a game to identify, if you add 10 things into the game, which one should you keep and which 9 do you kill? Like, for us as the developer, you're like, well, I love all 10. I put them in there because I love them. And it sounds like you have those trusted friends who will tell you, actually, no, none of the 10 are good. You need to go back to, like, this one has a little bit of good, but like, go back to the drawing board and find a better way, which is really important to have that sort of like honest feedback.
It's one of my friends who actually came up with the whole basic concept for my game. Just to give context, the game Scholar of the Arcane Arts is a wizard roguelike that you combine spells that can like, that's like the hook, is like you can combine spells in real time. It originally was not like that. Originally, if you've ever seen Infinity War, you know when Thanos fights Doctor Strange and like he shoots a spell at him and he parries it and changes the spell.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, that spell parrying looks so cool. So that was going to be my original game of like, you're going to see what the enemy's casting in real time, and then you have to parry it. And it just wasn't working. It was like the gameplay had to be so slow for you to be able to react in time that it just wasn't fun. It should have been turn-based.
Sure.
But one of my friends was playing the game, and I had like a spell thorn patch that you put a bunch of thorns on the ground. And he shot a fireball over it, and he like looked at me and goes, why isn't it catching on fire? I was like, what are you talking about, dude? And he just wouldn't stop harping on it. So I was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. So I went in and did it. And then he shot water at it. And he's like, okay, but it should be growing now. I'm like, you are so freaking annoying, right? Like, I hated it. But I was like, all right, fine, I'll do that. And then when I gave it to my other friends, they stopped fighting enemies, and they were just making gardens and like growing it with magic and then setting it all on fire. And I was like, oh, snap. I'm a genius. Look at the spell combo system I made.
Yeah, you're like, here, money, please. Like, I did it.
Right. Like, so like having those outside perspectives in of like, you think you know what's fun about your game, but this is actually the hook is invaluable.
Yeah, it sounds like you stumbled across the like, your game should be fun to play without any goal. And they're like, like you gave it to one of your friends and they're just like, oh yeah, I'm just building a garden now and then setting it on fire and watching it burn down. And there's something intrinsically fun about that. I watched a few different videos on your YouTube channel about that, especially like the one where the speedrunners were trying to break it. It is really, really interesting to hear you say that was not the original purpose of this game. Because I could see that being you going into this, creating Scholar of the Arcane Arts and saying, I want to make a game where you get a bunch of different spells, and then based off the elements you combine them with, you get to do broken stuff. I could see that being the thesis for the game you made. So it's really cool to hear you go from like transitioning from this like pairing mechanic into like, oh no, my game's now going to be just really exploring how many different crazy spell combos I could do. Was that a scary transition to make? Or was it kind of just so natural that it just all of a sudden you're like found yourself making this new game?
The reception of that change was so resounding.
Yeah.
To the point where like basically the fans of the game had to drag me kicking and screaming to that concept.
Yeah.
Because then, so I added that in and I was like, you know what? Only some spells will have this. And like people
Sure.
were like, why isn't every spell like this? And so like it was a very easy transition. And I also my original idea just wasn't working. So it
Yeah.
was very easy to kill that baby, like, or
Yeah.
kill that darling, whatever this phrase
You
is.
can kill babies. It's fine.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, right. If it makes the game better, kill him.
Yeah, if it
It's
makes the game better, that's good.
you had actually touched on something earlier that I think is really important in game dev of finding that thing that is like fun on its own, that you don't need anything for it. If you can find that and put that in a game, it's so easy because the rest of the stuff is just excuses to keep doing that fun thing, right?
Yeah. Or bosses to challenge you to, see how far you can push the idea, give you some like way to measure the way you can break the game more or less. Especially in Scholar of the Arcane Arts, like that's kind of the core concept is like, can you break my game for me, please? Like, and then go and kill a boss in half a second or something crazy.
Yeah. The breaking the game thing is like it's like, so one of the advantages we have as indie devs too is like we don't have to worry as much about like polish or like what if the game breaks. There is some charm to like Noida, right? Like that's a game where you've got a great wand if the frame stops. If you crash the game, it's actually a success for the player.
It's silly. You start laughing. You're like, oh my gosh, what I was doing was so insane. My game crashed. You're not mad that the game crashed. You're like, I did that. Like there's a sense of pride to it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, so we have like our little Discord and we have our like, our little one chat where we talk about like, the combos and stuff that we found. And they're literally counting frames for their combos to see how strong it is. They're like, dude, I got it down to like 3 FPS. This is great.
There's like an any % run to 0 FPS.
That's actually, that's a category.
Like, how fast can I make the game just freeze? Like,
That is brilliant.
That's awesome. Okay, so you went into, I'm going to circle back to publisher. So you went into a publisher with the mindset of trying to find someone to validate it, not needing funding, which I think from a publishing standpoint is really helpful because you're not like, I want to make this idea. It's not like Shark Tank where you walk in and you're like, I'm offering 10% of my company. You need to give me $100 million. It's nothing crazy like that. You get to walk in from a position of like, here's what I need from you. Here's the game idea. Is this something where we can like have a mutually beneficial relationship here? So how did you start finding publishers, or where did your journey begin with like finding this publisher or pitching? Kind of where'd that all come from?
Yeah. So, and actually to go back to the funding thing. So I didn't need funding, but I suggest everyone should request funding. I requested funding too with the publisher. Because there's always those horror stories of publishers that don't do anything and just take like 50% of your profits. When you request funding or an advancement, now they have skin in the game. Now they're going to start working for your game to try and get their advancement back.
Yeah, at least get their profit back in some regard, right?
Yeah, exactly.
That's a really good point.
I always suggest like, hey, if you're unsure about this publisher, if they're the right ones, ask for the advancement. If they don't do that, don't work with them.
Sure.
So the way that I started looking for publishers was just, I have a background in sales. So it was a lot of cold calling, a lot of emails. I found, I don't know if I should say this, but I found the CEO of a major publisher's email, and I just started emailing him.
Sure.
It didn't work, but like just how like vicious I was like, I have a goal and I'm going to keep doing this. And then there was actually a indie game convention. I was finally done. I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to get a publisher. I'll just
How many publishers was that in before you were like, I guess this isn't going to happen?
Oh, I had a spreadsheet with, I think it was 47 publishers.
Wow.
And the embarrassing thing was I had a contest with my friends, and that if whoever guessed the most correctly of how many publishers were going to say yes to me would win their name in the game, like as a spell. And the person who won guessed 0.
Did you hear back from any of these, or were these just like cold calls and then nothing? Did you actually get responses from the publishers?
Yeah, and they are actually like, they were all really good people. Like they were like I never got any like root stuff back. People actually responded back with advice too. Like these publishers say like, we don't think this project's right for us, but if you want your game to succeed, you should maybe work on this. You should work on that.
Had you given us this sort of information, this would have helped us make the decision easier or better, or that sort of advice. That's really nice for them to do. Like they could just say no or nothing. And instead they're like, hey, here's something that, because they probably see thousands of games every year, right? And so they know, then it's like looking at resumes. They know what resumes stand out to them and which things they're like attracted to as a publisher. Were there any tips that you, off the top of your head, would think would be helpful to share of like things that they mentioned that could have made Scholar of the Arcane Arts more publishable, I guess maybe not the right word, but a word I could use here?
Yeah, for sure. I think what you have to do is just before pitching to a publisher, you have to really polish a vertical slice of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure the onboarding feels good and gets to the good stuff quick.
Sure.
And almost treat your pitch to the publisher as like an announcement trailer to the public. They do go like they pretend like they go by like numbers and things like that, but there's a human element when they pick games.
Yeah.
And if they're not excited about it, they're not gonna publish it. So you got to keep that aspect in mind.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. And it makes sense, right? Like even you saying make a vertical slice where the onboarding is smooth and it gets to the fun. That's true for the game itself as well. Mm-hmm. Like nobody likes a game where it's 2 hours of onboarding of story, giving you story beats, teaching you crafting systems that you don't use until hour 5. Like no one likes sitting through a slog of tutorials. You want to I want to play the fun part right now. And like that's how you, especially with an indie game, you want to like in the first 5 minutes, like be able to hook someone and be like, oh, these spells combos are cool. I wonder what happens if I take this spell and apply fire to it. Because now I know what happens when I apply water to it, but what about fire and lightning and blah, 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 right? Like, you could probably pretty quickly get someone's brain dreaming of the combinations in your game.
Yeah, and admittedly, Scholar sucks with that. I've tried so many different versions of it, but like what happens is I think it's because it is a novel idea. Like not many games allow you to combine spells in real time while they're on the field, right? So when people hear spell combinations, they go in and they try to do it at the shop first, or they try to like go into their menu and see how do they link spells. And it's that concept of like, no, the spell has to be on the field and then shoot another spell at it.
Yeah.
I can't to this day figure out how to tutorialize and get that right. Sure. And that is a weakness on mine. I'm really good at making systems and mechanics. I'm really bad at explaining them. So there's always that barrier of like, God, I hope they play for 2 hours because once it clicks for them, you can see like on my game charts, it's like people either stop playing half an hour in or they play for 300 hours. There's no in between.
Sure. It's once it bites you. I'm a big fan of Path of Exile, and it's like there is definitely this curve in Path of Exile where you're like, oh, really fun to ARPGs just at a core are fun to just kill stuff, right? That's fun. But then like you have this trough where you don't really understand the game and you come out the other side and you're like, oh my gosh, the depth of this game is ridiculous. And your game has very much that like Path of Exile, take all these pieces of Lego and put them together to make something that's silly and ridiculous. But you have to like understand all these Lego pieces before you can like find that fun. I don't know how to tutorialize that any better, but I can see how that could be a problem. I think I'm trying to empathize with you here.
Yeah, because I know you have Hexagon out there and doing almost like a city builder card, almost like a card kind of type game style.
How used to have cards at one point.
Yeah, I did. I remember that. Yeah. How are you? Because I can imagine that's information heavy, so that must have been tough to tutorialize as well.
Yes, and it is constantly hard to do. I think the biggest thing that I've learned along the way is that if I'm having a hard time explaining it for what I want Hexagod to be, it either needs to be removed from the game or reworked. For a long time, I was taking inspiration from like Civilization with hammers. You know how like if you want to produce a building in Civilization, you need to do 100 units of production, basically. I had something similar shown of like, oh, to harvest this resource, you need to put in 10 work, and then I could balance things around, because my idea was to balance stuff. So then I could have things that maybe take 100 work, but then give you 2x, 3x, 4x the amount of resources for something that takes, equivalent amount of 10 work. I had a nightmare trying to explain that system, and people would constantly be like, I don't get what these gears are, and I don't know where this work comes from. And ultimately I was just like, let me just remove that. If it's really hard to explain to somebody, it probably doesn't fit for the type of game I'm trying to make, because I want it to be a simple strategy game that then has the depth in the replayability of the game, but not like a Paradox game where you have to watch 5 hours of YouTube videos to understand how to play the game. Like, the game should be very playable from the beginning. And that's something I'm trying to do and learn through Hexagod, is how do you do that really smooth and easy onboarding, and then I can hopefully in subsequent games make that complex side of it, I guess, more. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I actually have logged in my little mind palace. I have all these little rule of thumb stuff that if you can't explain it, it's not a good fit for your game. Dude, that is a gem. That's great.
Yeah, if it doesn't fit nicely into your tooltip, you're like, okay. If you have to rework your whole tooltip for the mechanic, you're like, maybe that's not the right thing, or maybe it's not the right perspective of that mechanic for the tooltip as well. I think thinking in the old tweets of something should be able to be explained in 140 characters is really good, because even in a complex game, players don't want to read a bunch. And that's where using one of the things I've learned a bit more in Hexagod is using little icons and tooltips and stuff, having your keywords. I think I saw Scholar of the Arcane Arts has highlighted words and stuff, but then even having little icons in the tooltips can just lessen some mental load of someone going through there. If they're doing a lightning build, they see a tooltip that has 3x and then the lightning icon, their brain really quickly goes, this is a tooltip I want to read because that already applies to my lightning build, or something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's it's so funny how just those little things of not only just icons, but just coloring a word differently goes miles.
Yeah,
miles.
It's honestly silly how much that makes a difference, because us as the developer, you write the sentence how it makes sense in your brain, and you're like, oh, perfect, yeah. Obviously, if this spell hits this type of thing, it does X more damage. That makes sense in my head. But then you see someone, your friend, read it, or one of those speedrunners read it, and they stumble over the wording, and you're like, huh, that didn't make sense in their brain. It made perfect sense for me, because obviously you wrote it, designed it, developed it. And then just seeing someone else's brain try to understand mechanics, it's why watching someone play your game, and which I think you talked about a lot, watching your friends play it and hearing them have the fun, is so important.
Yeah, 100%. And that was actually a big learning step for me, because like I said, this was the first thing I've ever done before. I'd never done game design or anything like that. I started this journey watching people play my game wrong and then blaming the players, which is the exact opposite, right? This is obvious. Why aren't
you just don't understand?
Right. My game doesn't suck. You just don't get it. No.
But it's such an easy trap to fall into at the same time, because you're like, I think this is fun, but then someone else plays it and they're kind of like, yeah, nice work. You're doing great, Endo. Yeah, I love it. And you're like, oh, maybe it's not fun. Huh.
Right.
Yeah. How do you just kind of, you follow the fun, is I guess would be, based off the story you've told me, it sounds like you're following the fun of what are people actually enjoying doing, just from how they're interacting with the system. Has that changed how you then developed it? Learning that lesson early, I guess that maybe not early in the project, but learning this lesson through the project, did that change how you develop spell combinations and stuff like that?
I saw it's the ones that people, you got to see what people are just repeatedly doing a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Or whenever they let out an exclamation. So in that process, I found out people like to see a lot of crap on the screen, right? So then I started making combinations of if this spell hits this element, you make more of the spell. Or you'll create creatures out of the spell. And people are like, oh, I like crap on the screen. So like just leaning more into that.
More equals better. It's very simple, very like scratch monkey brain.
It's also helped. So I'm developing a new game now. And I learned so much from the first one that what I first did was nail down that 30 seconds of fun. It's a single player 3D beat 'em up extraction game.
Okay.
I'm going real, spell combos wasn't complicated enough. I got to go even harder. But the first thing I did was I created a couple move sets. I gave it to my friends and I just watched what they did the most of, or like what combos they liked the most of. And I learned a little simple trick is if at the end of a combo, you just move the camera, they freak out. That is now their favorite combo. So for instance, I have one where the guy, it's like one of the combo sets is you're using a hammer, like one of the weapon types. And he jumps up and he slams the ground. When he jumps up, I change the camera to pull back and go to the side so you could see him arc.
Oh,
and then
you make it a cinematic moment.
Right, yeah.
Like they're already animation locked, so they can't do anything. So you're giving them that moment of impact and showing them a really cool angle of it, making them feel like a hero.
Yeah, and dude, you instantly recognized it because when I first showed the move off to like my Discord, they're like, "Oh, I don't like the camera changing because it's going to be hard to control. If the character can't move anyway, they're animation locked,
which can feel bad, right?
Right. But if you're moving the camera and you're giving them that moment, now it feels really good.
Yeah, yeah. Especially if it's synced with like the impact of the combo, right? Like if it's I don't know how it would work, but like if you had 3 steps to do the combo, but then you can add a 4th step in there, all of a sudden that 4th step makes it have even more of an impact because it's a even bigger attack or even more damage. Like there's a lot of ways of you kind of making that process feel even better and more impactful and like more rewarding for people doing crazier and crazier combos.
Rewarding them for doing it right is huge too. So something that I would like whenever I'm watching you stream that I've noticed you're very good at is adding that juice, even to like little icons and stuff like that. I think if I went with that mind frame in Scholar of like when you combine a spell, like the little spells like light up or some kind of like some feedback, I think people would have been like, oh, I should be doing that more.
Yeah. You want to reward them for playing the game you want them to play. I think one of the hardest things I've found in game development in general is like communicating the mindset you want the player to have while they're playing it. Right? Like you could see a player who opens up that game, gets spell 1, and it's just like, oh, I'm just going to throw a bunch of the wind spells at things and try to kill them. And then they're like, God, I feel really weak. And they feel weak because they're not playing the game the way that you've designed it, which is to no, don't just throw the air spell, give it the fire so then they're ignited, or give them something so then they're slowed and ignited, and then do this so that when you shoot it 50 of them pop out, right? Like that hurdle from just like you can press these buttons to play the game to how do I actually want you to play the game feels like such a challenging hurdle to get over. And that sort of feedback and like doing that camera angle is your way of hinting to the player, oh, if you do this, I promise you'll be better at the game, you'll do more damage, and you'll have more fun.
Yeah. And something I do, but you have to be so careful with, is almost punish the players for doing it the wrong way. But like you have to be really subtle with it. So for instance, in Scholar, the spells all have an annoying amount of cooldown. So you can't just spam fireball. Like you have to sit there for half a second before you can shoot it again.
Yeah.
Which then kind of edges them to be like, hey, look at the other spells too. Don't just start maxing one fire. Like it's not a machine gun.
Yeah.
Don't just use one. Another example, like so for the new game, the AI recognizes when you repeat combos. And they have like a little eye that pops up. And it's like, when that eye pops up, if you do the same combo again, they're going to parry you, which leaves you vulnerable, and then they're going to beat you up. So like that whole like, I don't want you just repeating one combo. Use your whole move set. Start mixing it up.
Right. Pick the one that's going to work the best in the situation, try to make meaningful combat, which is not a trivial thing to do. Meaningful combat is a very hard thing to do. Watching like GGG try to do that with PoE 2 and stuff, it just sounds like a nightmare. That's exciting. So you cold called a ton of publishers. You almost gave up at some point. All the whole time you kind of pivoting and learning how to make Scholar of the Arcane Arts the fun version of itself and exploring what all that means. At what point did you then stumble across the publisher you ended up publishing the game with?
Yes. There's an indie like event or something called Meet to Match that I just stumbled upon. And basically it's all these indie publishers and indie developers, and they just get to meet, and you send them their decks and stuff like that. And then, so it's like usually for a weekend. And then one of the days you get to like present for 5 minutes of your game. And then you get to also send your deck to all the publishers. So I had done that. I presented my game.
Were you nervous beforehand?
No, I love talking about my game. I will go forever. So I was like, they actually had to stop me. They're like, oh, this is great, but you're like 8 minutes now. And I'm like, sorry. I'm so excited. I had scheduled calls because that's the way it works. Like you schedule an hour call with 4 publishers. After I presented my game, 3 of them canceled.
Ooh.
And then I had one publisher left, and he couldn't get on the video, and he was calling me from a Starbucks. And like I could hear the background and stuff. And I'm like, all right, dude, let's do it. It's like, we'll try it. And he's actually the one who signed me. That was actually Yes Digital. Awesome. I had no expectations. I was like, this is the last time I'm going to try. It was literally the last presentation I gave, and I got him.
Yeah. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on, I guess, landing it and like having enough faith to see it through to the point at which it became successful. Because that's the other flip of the coin, is you could have talked to cold called 5 people, gotten 5 or probably like 2 emails back or something like that, and been like, maybe not. But like, there's a certain level of perseverance that I often hear with people's stories of how they find stuff, where eventually it's like, you know, enough attempts and eventually something will pan out and work if you keep creating those opportunities. So like having the courage to go into that thing, even having the courage to go talk to someone after 3 people cancel on you is not an easy thing to do. I don't know how much of the publishing agreement you can talk about, maybe high level, what was kind of discussed as you were kind of working through the terms. And again, I don't want to put you in a position to break any NDAs or anything like that. So maybe keep it as high level, or we can move on to a different topic if you're not comfortable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having this information out there is like super helpful, especially for like idiots who've never done this before. So basically the agreement was that they would give me an advancement, and then when the game launches, all that money goes back to them until they make the advancement back, and then we would split the revenue off of that. Mm-hmm. Part of it was then we set up milestones of like, you have to do this part of the game by this date, and then I would be able to decide the milestones, which was nice.
Nice.
So I came in, I said, this is what I have envisioned for the full game. And they're like, okay, cool. Let's work together and say like, here's 30%, here's 60%. Like, what do those percentages look like? So we did that. And then on their end, they did QA, which was huge.
Sure.
And localization. And then they would have handle all the marketing.
How many languages are you localizing to?
I have the spreadsheet up there somewhere, but it's something like 7.
Wow, nice.
Yeah.
Probably like all the major languages.
I think it's 2, I think it's Chinese, Japanese, Korean, and then most of Europe.
Yeah, like German, French, English.
Mm-hmm. Portuguese was a big one. Yeah. Portuguese is like a huge market.
Brazilian players love to play games.
Yeah, that's a huge gaming market.
Yeah. I've had so many people reach out. They're like, hey, I'm from Brazil. I'll translate your game for free. I just want to play your game. And I'm like, oh, cool. All right, sounds
that's
good.
Sick.
That's how chess survivors got Portuguese. Someone was just like, yeah, I love your game. My friends would love it, but they don't speak English. So, yeah.
That is awesome.
It was very wholesome. I was like, cool. And they
talk about validation.
Yeah.
Like, I love your game so much, I want to send it to other people.
Yeah, yeah. That is like the ultimate. I feel like that's the ultimate way any of my games will be successful, is like through that. So looking at, I guess, you've moved on to a new project, which kind of gives me the sense that maybe your work with Scholar is coming to a close or has already done so. Looking back at that process and working with the publisher, what are your takeaways? What are your thoughts on it? Did you enjoy working with the publisher? Was that a good decision, bad decision? Kind of giving a little bit of hindsight into maybe not specifically with the publisher you worked with, but just in general working with a publisher.
Or like working with a publisher is huge. Like that's not only what they teach you, but like, man, the validation is, I can't get over that enough. Like going on this journey, like almost broke me. Like mentally, like my ego was shattered because I've never challenged myself like this before, you know? And I always like thought, you know, I would always tell myself growing up, like, hey, I'm a smart guy. But like when I'm following a YouTube tutorial word for word and the code's still not working, I start questioning my whole life, you know, like, so having that,
is this real? You're like, oh my gosh,
right? Like, have I just been dumb this whole time and lying to myself? I actually
That's so relatable.
I asked my wife that at one point, like, literally was going to tell her I quit. I was going to tell her I was like proud of what I've done so far, but I can't even follow a tutorial. I think I'm going to quit.
Yeah.
And all I got out when I told her, when I got to her, was I just looked at her and I said, am I dumb?
Yeah.
That's all I could say.
Yeah.
And she actually held me after I said that and said, I don't know what you're working on, but I've seen you do the impossible. So I know you're going to do this too.
Yeah.
I can't then say, well, actually I quit.
Yeah. You're like, you're being too supportive. I have to keep going. I guess that's the end result, which is perfect. That's what you want out of a partner, right? You want someone who can be like, hey, I don't get what it is to develop, but like, I believe in you. And you're like, that's what I needed to hear. Right.
That is everything. You need a support system to do this. Absolutely, friends, partners, anyone. You can't do this alone. It'll break you. It will break you.
No, it's partly why I've built a YouTube community, because it's like, it is helpful to have my partner to support me. It's helpful to have my cats to just keep me company during the day. It's helpful to have friends who play games to play my games and stuff like that. But like, there's a certain level of empathy that talking to other developers gives you, of like validating that, oh yeah, that part of the engine you're working with, that is confusing. Or I have tried to do a spell system before that does that, and I know how complex it is to make a spell that does 5 interesting different things with 5 different types of elements. Like, that sort of validation goes a long way as well, of not only someone supporting you, but someone like to be empathetic with the challenges you're going through. Along your journey in that regard, like, have you found communities online that have been helpful for your game development journey?
Yes, there's actually a little Discord that I got invited to of other game dev people who also had YouTube channels.
Yeah,
they call themselves like the Devloggers of Earth, and like you're saying, like having. So I ended up stopping doing devlogs because it just wasn't working. My channel was not taking off, and like to spend a week, I'd be spending a week on a video to get 1 subscriber, and like I don't know if this is it. Like, and then which I know you've had great success with it, because like comparatively looking at your channel and looking at my channel, I think you're doing awesome. Your Twitch chat is. You've got people in your like that already puts you in like the top 10%, that there's actual more. It's not just you on the second monitor watching your own Twitch stream. You're like top 10%.
Yeah. Which is very different than top 1%. You know, there's the factoring scale up there where the top 1% actually has, you know, could make a living off of it. But I think that lesson was what taught me. It's like, the amount of effort you put into a video and then the outcome usually doesn't match that. And so then the decision is very clearly like, do I keep doing this? So even though you said my Twitch is successful, it's like at a certain point I had to look at it last year where I was like, I'm doing this 30 hours a week. The channel's not growing. It's sitting at 30 to 40 viewers on average. Like, it's not growing. Is this worth the effort? And the answer was no. The answer, if I want to be a successful studio, I need to make games that are fun to play, and I need to spend my time doing that. But even with YouTube, it's like, okay, what does YouTube mean to me? What is it? Is it going to be my full-time gig? If so, then I need to become better at making YouTube videos. But I did the opposite, where I'm like, I want to try to make a video that takes me less than an hour to record, edit, and publish. and then I can do that on a Friday morning and then go do whatever I need to do for the rest of Friday. And just kind of make it more of a digital journal, which I think has led to it being more successful than me being like, let me spend 20 hours editing down all this footage to make a really cool devlog. Instead, I'm like, here's my journey. You can come along if you want to. If not, that's okay. So it's interesting. And I think it's really helpful to, I don't know, like to see you to come to that same realization. But I would encourage you, because I feel like your shorts that you did for Scholar looked really successful for marketing your game to other players. Like being like, here's, you like distilled it down to 30 seconds of here's the fun. And that's helpful for like a marketing standpoint to understand that and then ship that to publishers. So I guess I'm giving you kudos for those shorts you sent me, because they feel like they were very, very like, I watched it and I was like, oh, I get the game. And that's cool. That's helpful to see as someone who hasn't actually played the game.
Yeah, I was actually going to segue into the shorts of like, there's something about finding your voice with marketing.
Yeah.
Such as like you said, like you bring such like a genuine voice to your I guess they're not like devlogs, like you said, like your online journal, I guess kind of like a devlog, whatever it is, but it's so genuine and real that and it's easy to make. That's huge.
That's the big thing.
That's what I found with the YouTube shorts of like, I was getting like 1 subscriber and editing these videos. So it was taking me a week to edit. I would make those YouTube shorts and they would take maybe 3 hours, 20,000 views. I got, I think, a total of like 100, 200 subscribers. After that, the first YouTube short popped off, I look at those devlogs and I'm like, never again. That's not it. For me, at least.
And it can be something where you can throw that to, like, especially with shorts, you can throw that to Instagram and YouTube shorts and TikTok. Like, you can very easily take that 30-second clip and then have it be, the goal is not to make a devlog series and a YouTube channel, but the goal is to bring awareness to the fact that my game exists. Heck, you can even post a short onto Reddit, right? And like, that's a way of giving players like, here's the fun, cool part about my game. And it's not, I feel like some people get into making devlogs from a perspective of like, I'm trying to sell my game to people. And like, devlogs are really hard to do that from a perspective of getting players. You know, I feel like my devlogs are very much focused at other game developers and just trying to share my journey on the process of making games. So I think there's something to using your editing that you've learned along the way to be able to distill your game down to 30 seconds and give that to people who would play the game. And your action item, your like call to action isn't subscribe to my channel. There's a link in the bio to the Steam page. And there's a wish list you can go get, or go buy the game, right? The game's on sale right now.
Yeah, that's and the talk about the devlogs for it is kind of funny until like someone says it out loud that you realize how bad of an idea it is to make devlogs to sell your indie game, because only indie devs care about it, and all indie devs are poor. So no one's gonna buy your game if they're watching your devlog, you know?
Yes, it's certainly, when you say it out loud, you're like, yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Huh.
Damn it.
Shit. I've been surprised, and I talked about this a little bit on the stream yesterday, but I've been surprised by like learning how to package up an idea has been something I've learned from making YouTube videos of like, how do I encapsulate an idea that's interesting, attention grabbing, and then actually pays off with content. And that's important for games at the same time. How are you changing anything with your new game versus what you did with Scholars of the Arcane Arts? Like, is there like a big, like a thesis statement or something you could say of like, compared to what I did here, this is what I'm trying to do with this game that's like a vibes different, maybe not mechanics or gameplay, but like from a packaging perspective and kind of a high level look at your new project?
Yeah. The two big changes I'm making. The first one is the graphics of the game matter. As much as like we like to pretend like, hey, if it's a good game, people will ignore graphics. It is so rare for that to be true. Actually, funny story about that. The first review I ever got for Scholar of the Arcane Arts was on a pirating website. And the person commented, "Baby dev makes game in MS Paint." That was the whole review, which is like poetry. Like no
Yeah.
word is wasted in that review.
Like, it's very
So like
tight. And did you feel seen by that, or like how did you feel about that review?
I looked at it and I was like, oh, so he did play it.
You're like, you played the game.
That's great. Yeah, it was basically made in MS Paint, and this is my first game. You nailed it.
Yeah.
So yeah, the looks actually do presentation, like you're saying. It's important because that's how people are going to first interact with it.
Yeah.
And then the second one is that I've changed from what I did with Scholar. It's like I worked on Scholar for like 2 years before I thought of like how I'm going to sell it or whatever.
Sure.
For my new game, I nailed that 30 seconds of fun, that combat loop. And then for the next, I'm like, this is great. It's feeling good. I have a real game here. Then for the next 3 months, I only made stuff that I could show off in a trailer.
Sure.
That was it.
Yep. Sure.
So I started making cool landscapes. I started making cosmetics. I started making flashy move sets. And then like, now that that's down, now I can actually make the game, which is actually a lot of how AAA games do. Like, what's that new game from the guys that made Spider-Man? It's like you're like a space bounty hunter or whatever. But anyway, the dev, it's like a big AAA studio, showed off the trailer, announced it, and then they interviewed him. I'm like, what is the game like? And they're like, we're still trying to figure it out. Like, that's kind of how the industry is now. But I've already seen success because IGN's going to show my trailer on Monday for my new game.
Yo,
which is nuts. Like,
can you speak more about that? How did that even begin to happen? I haven't the slightest clue how I would reach out to IGN and kind of what's that story?
Yeah, so like I said, I had been working on the trailer for the game for 3 months.
Also, what's the name of the game so people can go and find it?
Oh, sure, yeah. It's called Echo Extract.
Echo Extract. Cool.
So I got it down to like a tight 1 minute trailer. Got a ton of feedback from it, from like my Discord community, from those friends that I tell you that will tell me outright that trailer sucks. Got it like perfect. Not a second is wasted in it. And then I created a Google Drive folder, and I put in there all the capsule art. I put in the trailer. I put in GIFs, and then 5 screenshots.
Like a press kit.
Like a press kit. Yeah, exactly. This is how like out of the industry I am. Like, I don't know the actual names for these things. I
don't know if that's what it's called, but I put that into every game. There's a button where it's a press kit, and it's literally just that. It's all the assets you would need if you want to make a YouTube video. Here's the format of the capsule with the correct YouTube formatting. Like, I think it's called press kit. I don't know. Someone can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong.
Yeah, no, and the press kit is huge because I've also found that most content creators like don't want to work because they get so much stuff. So like, if you can do most of the work for them, like give them the thumbnail, give them the premise, you're more likely to succeed.
Or give them the 5 nice screenshots of like what you think looks really good compositionally. Then they don't have to play the game and like try to pause it and go and edit the video and get the screenshots, and you can lower the barrier to having a lucky successful opportunity happen.
Yeah, and to like throw shade at content creators at all too, because they are bombarded with games.
I can't imagine.
So they can't play every game to find out if it's fun. You gotta show them this is the fun, like those shorts that we were talking about. Here's the fun. Here's the hook.
You almost need to have them have like a YouTube title ready to go. Like, you see some people like they took Slay the Spire, but they added dice to it. And you're like, what game is there? Like, oh, it's Dice in the Dungeon or something like that. And like, you kind of need, I feel like, to have successful with like the YouTube industry and like content creators, you need to like think about what their title could be for their video as you're kind of making your game or something like that. So you made a press kit, you got that all together. What would happen next? And
then I just went on my hunt with my sales background. Like, I just started looking up LinkedIn's. I started looking for emails, and I found the director of oh my gosh, I don't know. A director of editors.
Some department.
Some kind of director. I said director, and I said, okay,
cool.
You're important. And I just emailed him. And I was like, hey, here's the trailer. Here's the concept of the game. I will give you exclusive world premiere announcement of the game. The Steam page isn't even up yet.
It sounds enticing when you say it that way. You're such a salesperson. That's so...
Yeah.
What an interesting, like... I've always been surprised by how much like of my past careers come into like game development in ways I just didn't even think about. from like answering players stuff on like a feedback forum. I used to work on a support team, so I'm good at like crafting support type answers. Have you felt that with the sales background? It sounds like that's a yes, but like how, like that seems so important to like I guess, yeah. What do you think about being a salesperson going into making games then?
Huge, because if you don't incorporate sales into your game and you make a great game, then you've made a hidden gem. And that's almost the worst thing you can do, because that means you're really great at making the game. It's just
no one knows about it. Like,
that's the worst.
Yeah.
I would rather have a bad game that doesn't sell, because I'm like, okay, I can learn from this, and like I got what I deserved. Instead of making the best game of all time, I just am too shy to ask people to play it. You know?
So you're really ramping up, I guess, like the marketing aspects of, like, the first game was get a publisher, try to get some validation that I can make a fun game. And now it's the ramp up, the like, let me see what I can do from a marketing standpoint to really like get this game to have that, maybe like before the game is built, have like this idea that the game is good, or like not good, but marketable, buyable, clickable. I don't know what a good word would be. Cool. So you reached out to them, and now like you kind of enticed them with this, like, I'll give you an exclusive access, like all these really good like salesy words that are like, ooh, people are like, ooh, yeah, monkey brain, I want the exclusive announcement. Yeah. And then what did they say to that?
So he messaged me back and he's like, this looks great. We'll show the trailer tomorrow. And I was like, whoa, wait. Because I didn't even get my Steam page approved yet.
You're like, wait a second, whoa, we're in the process.
I'm having like anxiety attacks of like, is it possibly okay if we can wait till Monday?
Right, you struck lightning with like a lucky opportunity, because he saw it, he responded and said yes. And you're like, but I'm not ready to capitalize on that quite yet.
I was like, there's no way he's going to say yes. And then he said yes. So he's like, yeah, no, that's great. We'll show it on Monday at 10 a.m. Eastern. I was like, awesome. And then I went to go get my Steam page reviewed, and it failed twice. And I only got a review approved this morning.
Oh, shit. Well, congratulations.
So I've been having anxiety attacks all week of like, this trailer's going to go viral, and there's going to be nowhere to wishlist it, and everyone's going to forget about it.
Yeah.
Like, I was prepping my mind.
Your call to action is gone. What were you failing from? Which is also someone probably cares about here who's watching these videos. What were you failing from the Steam review?
So the first one was so my Steam page, it's a lot of art assets and GIFs.
Yeah.
I just never wrote any words. So it's like, it's all pictures, and it failed because it wouldn't show up well in Google searches.
Yeah,
so
they want you to have like a list of features sometimes, and you're like 10 to 20 minutes of gameplay, like interactive thing, blah, and you're like, no one cares about that actually, but they want that for the SEO.
Right. Yeah, the SEO. That's exactly what they referenced, the SEO, which I had to Google. And then I had to SEO the SEO.
I had to SEO the SEO. Oh, that's good.
And then the other failure was the early access questions.
Yeah.
So they're like, one of them is like, one of the questions, it's like, how is the launch going to be different? The full launch going to be different from the early access? And I wrote,
you probably made promises or something.
I made the promises because I'm like, I know I'm going to do it. I did it with Scholar. I did everything I promised.
And they're
with
like,
Scholar.
use soft language. I had the same thing. They're like, use soft language and make it. Don't make any promise. And I literally like just changed a few words and like, perfect.
Yeah, I just changed to I will to I plan to.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Literally give it, which is also good to speak in terms of non-committal terms like that from an engineering standpoint. Like, what's it like? A Sith deals in absolutes, but engineers don't. Like,
I love that.
So that is good to speak in that way, but it is funny that they're like, it's very nitpicky. They're like, just change the word. You're like, okay, cool. So those are two easier things to, I think about as you're making a Steam page, especially if you're under that time pressure of like, just try to get somebody hit these things home in the correct order.
Yeah, but the kicker though of I was using too definitive language. I also got a caution on it because it asks if the price will increase, and I said, yeah, there's a chance the price will increase to reflect more content. And they're like, this is too ambiguous. You might want to. I'm like, what do you want? Like Ryan Gosling, like, what do you want?
Like, come on, like you wanted non-committal. Now I'm being too non-committal. Like,
killing me over here. I'm like, I also sent like 3 other tickets just to like 3 different departments of Steam, saying
because you're freaking
IGN
out.
is going to reveal the trailer on Monday. Please, you will lose money. And it was actually the one ticket that I said Steam can lose potential money if there's nowhere to wish list it after the trailer showcase.
Yeah.
Responded to instantly, and then they pushed it through.
That's good. You gave them, you told them the priority of it, and you're not wrong, because you're also like, people know IGN, like that's a well-known site that everyone has, been around for decades. So it's helpful for them to be like, okay, like we also want you to have the action item be to come to our site. Like they're on the same page. You aligned, which is also a sales background thing of trying to align people's goals and missions together. That is very much a salesy thing. I'm curious to talk a little bit more about that. Was there anything else from the IGN stuff that you wanted to talk about or share here? Because that's really, really exciting.
No, just if you do get that same response that I do, make sure there's already like a 6-pack in the house, because you're going to be screaming through the house and celebrating. And that's what I did. And I couldn't do that yet. I had to drive out to grab beer and then come back.
I didn't have the beer on hand, so I was very excited to drive.
I was sitting there at the steering wheel like, oh my God.
Yeah, I remember for Chess Survivors, I released the demo, and Retroation played the demo on his YouTube channel. And in the run-up to releasing that game, I had read a bunch of like blogs about how 21 minutes till dawn or something, or whatever it's called. Also, like their viral nature started by some YouTubers playing it. I remember watching him play it, and I just ran around the house like, it's happened. Like, yes, it didn't. My game didn't blow up, and I didn't make a bunch of money, but it definitely helped spark that like. More people saw it. It validated me that like there's something fun about the game. So like IGN saying yes, we'll do it is like a pretty big sign for your new project in that regard, which is really cool. So congratulations.
Yeah, no, the retro thing is huge, because I'll tell you, I bombarded him with Scholar and he was just not feeling it. So the fact that he played Chess Survivors, man,
he's also brutally addicted to the Bazaar right now. Like I sent him Hexagod, and I could see in the leaderboards he did download it and he did play it, but I think his channel is just full of the Bazaar right now. So he's brutally, which is fine. I understand. Hopefully he'll play it at some point. When it comes in full release. But so circling back to your sales background, moving into like game development, what different things do you think were beneficial from having done a bunch of sales? Kind of just different skill sets or mentalities you've built throughout that career that you were kind of maybe surprised by how helpful they were in doing game development?
Yeah. Communication with not only content creators or publishers or whatever, but like with your gamers. Having the Discord open and knowing how. So a lot of times when like I was working with sales, I would find that I had to discern of like, is the sale not happening because of something I'm doing, or is the sale not happening just because this isn't the right fit? Right.
Yeah.
And having that come in from the weird way that I've turned that of like when people would complain about mechanics or balance or something, it's finding of like, is that the actual problem, or is it the perception of the problem? And like, actually, if you tweak something else that has nothing to do with that, it's so like one issue we were having was people were getting, I think they're getting like frustrated with the power scaling in the game. And the problem wasn't that I need to buff the player. It's just that the runs were so long. The runs were averaging like an hour and a half. So when I started deleting half the game and brought it down to 45 minutes, the power scaling worked great. And people were satisfied by the time they got to the end of it.
Sure, because you had grind moments probably in the hour 45 for a game that doesn't want to be an ARPG, right? You're much more like, from what I've seen, it's much more like it's a roguelike game, so it's much more like a Vampire Survivors type game but maybe with more levels and boss fights and that sort of scaling and stuff like that. That's interesting. Very interesting. What else have you learned from, I guess that's like working with your players to try to identify like the core problem, not like, it'd be like, if a company says, the product's just too expensive for us, that might be, the answer could be, okay, let's lower the price, but the problem could be like they don't understand the value. Could be an
You
example.
sure you don't in sales? That's the exact right answer. That's the exact right answer.
My partner's brother is I've talked to him a lot over the years because he's in sales, and I'm like I'm interested in it because it's an important skill set to learn how to do. Like, how do you sell something?
Yeah, there's the value and the perception of value, which is actually kind of why I'm struggling with what I should price the next game, because there is such a thing as pricing too low.
Yeah.
Because then people will look at it and be like, it's like you don't ever want to buy cheap furniture. And I don't care how good that salesman's going to tell me it is, how durable it is. If that chair is $2.
I'm sitting in a Herman Miller, like, this is one of the best purchases that I've ever made. And I'm like, because like we said at the beginning, I've sat in this chair for 16 hours some days. And like, it needs to be a nice chair then.
Right. But the thing though is, if that Herman Miller was $5, would you trust it?
Probably not. The fact that it was like $1,200 did give me some idea. It probably gave me some confirmation bias of sitting in this chair and being like, "Oh, this is a nice chair." Is it worth $1,200? I don't know.
Sure.
But that's the psychology of purchasing stuff, right? And that's kind of what you're touching at is like, what do I price the game at? Because Scholars is $4.
Yeah. And what's happened with that is everyone thinks it's a Vampire Survivors like.
Yeah.
But if it was
I think is okay though for what it is kind of fine, but it is not like the gameplay loop is different from it. It is a different type of game, but it does have the same like you're creating the bullet hell for your enemies. It has the same sort of vibe in that regard.
Right. But like yes, 100%. You're creating the bullet hell, but the mechanics of it of like people play the game and they think that fireball is going to be auto casting for them.
Yep. Sure, I can see how that would be a problem. Yeah.
And I've had people like, I've actually just saw one YouTuber who gave it like 3 minutes, saw it wasn't auto casting, turned it off.
Sure.
So like there is like that. So I sometimes wonder like, oh, if because I make a lot of promises in the game. Like the game actually has a secret deck builder in the game too. So like when you kill monsters, you collect their cards and then you can go back to town and play with them and stuff.
Yeah.
But like if you see a game's like $1.99 and you're like, no, it doesn't. Or like 10,000 combos for $1.99.
You're like, you're right. Half of them are probably unfun.
Right.
But you're like, no, they're actually all pretty interesting and could given the right combinations be really, really crazy.
Yeah. And I'm not saying too that I should have priced it higher. It's just something that I think about. And now I'm coming with the new game of like the art's way better. It's 3D, it's extraction. Is it okay if I go 15 with it? Yeah. But it's just me and this is a hobby. You know, like
it feels like it's the circling back to the beginning of the conversation. It feels like that weird imposter syndrome. Could I make a game that is worth $15?
Yeah,
like that is a hard. I mean, I priced Hexagod at I think $8 right now, and I like almost at the last moment brought it down to $5. But I'm like, I'm happy I did $8 because it's a more representative of what I think the game is valued at. But like, so yeah, you're thinking $15 for the new game?
Maybe. I don't know. I'm struggling. I know Sulfur is an indie extraction game that came out recently, and they're at $19.99.
Mm-hmm.
And extraction games, because they're so new, there's a little bit of a premium on them. Like barely anyone makes a free extraction game. And then even the ones that like I said, the indie ones are charging $20 for it. So I'm thinking 15. I don't know. I mean, hey, the trailer's on IGN. That's $15, right?
Yeah. There's
some validation.
There's some validation there, but there's also the other side of the coin where like you see a YouTuber play a game and they're like, this game's insanely fun and it's only $5. Mm-hmm. Like there's the perception of it, but there's also the like people want insane value for things, which is interesting. I always think I'm like, I usually get a vibe of what I want to put a game at, and I just look at kind of the market of like what are the comparable games, and I just price it at that. But then when you start to sit down and try to analyze it, that's when I'm like, oh, it's not as clear as just make it $8. You know, there is so much more to pricing a game than not. And so doing sales, has that helped you in this decision, or is that like making it harder to come to a decision of what the new price should be for the next game?
Weirdly, it just hasn't affected me at all. Cool. Because I never price the things I sell. You know, my boss tells me this is the price.
Oh yeah,
and then I got to finagle
your constraints, and then you're like, here's your quota, go crush your quota, and like, cool,
Right.
I'll go do it.
Hey, if you want to be my boss and just tell me what the price or echo at, I'd love that. And then I'll figure out how to finagle it into people's steams.
That can be where a publisher comes in handy too, right? Is
Yeah.
like you'll have that conversation with somebody who has a different view and a different way of valuing your product, because there's like intrinsic value of like, this is my game, this is my little thing, like I value it highly, therefore others should as well. Do you think you'll go with a publisher for this game?
No.
I
actually am very happy to self-publish this one.
Why is that?
There was a disconnect from me and my game with the publisher in between, which they were great. I do want to say on record, they did truly try to make the game as much as possible, and they supported me. Nothing against them. It's just I realized I didn't. So I'm like obsessive about my game, and I would update it and update it and update it. And if it was up to me, there would be weekly updates to the game. They thought there should just be quarterly, and having that like disconnect of it just killed me. Of like when I'd be talking to the people in our Discord, and they're like, "Man, we really want to see this change," and I'm like, "I know, I made that change 2 months ago. I'm so sorry. Just hold on."
Yeah,
that killed me. It was also really weird too to see updates or posts on Steam that I said that was written by their copy.
Sure.
And it just, I don't know, I didn't like that disconnection. And it kind of took away the heart of what makes indie great. Of like, you're talking to me. It's we're almost like friends. You're my friend playing my game that I just happened to charge you for, kind of thing.
I saw Dawn Folk recently came out, and that's made by one developer, and he worked with a publisher, and I was reading through some of the posts and pages, and they talked about the developer, and they used his name. His name's Darren. And they said Darren did this or that, or like Darren's working on this thing next. And so it was from the communication standpoint of we're the publisher talking on, and we're sharing this on behalf of the developer. And I thought that was a really cool way, because they clearly through the marketing were like, there's a picture of him on this the Steam page saying, here's Darren, he made the game, and the trailer is him talking and him sharing his project through the trailer and like his own voice in it. And so I think there are ways to work with a company but then still keep that. It just might be that it could feel disingenuous if you are. I could very much see that where you're like, I wouldn't say it that way. Like I would like to talk about the thing, but I wouldn't use those words certainly. It's like if you ever filter an email through ChatGPT and it edits it and adds punctuation, it'll be like, I would never use that punctuation. And I'm like, get rid of that shit. Or like, I don't use the word delve in ChatGPT words is like, delve always comes up because it thinks people use the word delve, but I don't ever say that in my normal life, right? Like, that's interesting. So the next game is going to be completely self-published then.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, the advantage of this is the hobby. I have my 9 to 5.
Yeah,
I don't have to worry about funding. If I had to worry about funding, I would go with the publisher for sure.
That's cool. That's a good place to be at.
Yeah, trust me. I know I'm like blessed and spoiled over here. I'm not one of those people who are like, I worked hard and bought my first house at 21, but it was really like my parents who did. Like I know I have such an advantage, so it's like hard to give all my experience to other dev people. My advice to most other dev people are like, for your first game, make it a hobby first.
Yes.
Because it's probably going to stink anyway. Like,
Yeah, I would 100% agree. People should not follow what I'm doing now. What I'm doing now is I want to make a business, and it just so happens that game development is the business I picked because it's such a low overhead. Like, Steam takes a 30% cut, but like the rest of the distribution is solved. Could you imagine sending out like a physical product? You have to have someone make it for you and then ship it somewhere, and like you have to print out labels and get it to the right people, and you have to then have returns for the product. Like Steam, like it's so solved, and it's just so easy with making games. And like, think about making a book. You make a book, you can't edit the book. You have a typo on page 87 that you find out, and someone messages you like, "Hey, there's a typo on page 87." You're like, "We made 10,000 of those." Shit. Like, and you're like, cool, or video game, you're like, oh, cool, let me fix the typo, and then you push it and you're good to go, right? It's done.
And then how do you get the money to make 10,000 of those? Like you're saying, with Steam, you just upload it. It costs the internet. Like,
yeah. It's very, and especially indie games are very small. Do you plan on working with any like artists or like capsule artists or marketing people, or is there any like plans to reach out to like, I guess, consult or have other people help you on the project?
Yeah, so I have my composer Eli Robbins, who worked on Scholar, is love him. Makes insanely good music, and he's like so reliable, which is more important than anything else.
Sure.
Working with people, I've noticed that most people just aren't reliable, which is kind of stinks. So he's already made, like, he made the music for the trailer, and he's already made a couple songs for Echo, and part of me just wants the games to take off so he can make more, because he's just that great. Other than that, I think I made my own capsule art. I made my own. Actually, do you want to see the page so you have an idea of? You can tell me if the capsule art is garbage.
Sure.
If you're like, hey, maybe you should hire a capsule artist. But yeah, maybe just localization, and then Steam has a system where you can have people play test your game. I'll be utilizing that, but I'm going to try and really make it a solo run this time.
I like the logo a lot. I feel like it stands out nicely, and it's that same kind of, a lot of capsule artists or capsules have that. I guess the strong character on the right, and then your name and stuff on the left there. So, no, it looks good, and it has that nice retro touch to it, which looks like the game art has as well. So,
I have Chris Zasowski. I'm sure you're familiar with him, and just like video after video, and just saw his stuff about capsule art and tried to incorporate that. I actually kind of cheated with it too, because what I did was I just positioned a 3D model like this, screenshotted it, and just painted over in Photoshop.
Perfect.
Yeah. So because I'm not actually that artistic, so
yeah,
I could trace
smarter,
lines
not
there.
harder. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think the other big thing you're going to get here with IGN is you'll theoretically be able to see if there's a lot of traffic to the page, and then there's not a lot of like conversion to wish lists. You'll be able to see some, like, it's a good moment to test, do I need to change something about the visuals and stuff like that, which I think is worth its weight in gold, right? If you can, it's one of the reasons I think the Next Fest is helpful too. I don't know if you put your games in the Next Fest yet, but like, that's a moment before you release your game for you to like see if there's something specific that you need to change about it beforehand, or it can be a moment for the demo to pop off and go viral as well, which is exciting.
Like you were saying, if it comes back after the IGN trailer and like no wish lists happen from it, all right, I'll start talking to a trailer maker. I'll start talking to a capsule art guy. Like, you got to learn from that, you know?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if no wish lists come from it, because it looks, I mean, just from I didn't look at it for that long. I'll look at it a little bit more after the podcast here and try to give you some more like constructive feedback. But just from the cursory glance of it, it definitely looks good. So I'm also not a capsule artist, so I don't really know all that well, but
I'll take it. I love your Hexagod capsule art, by the way.
Yeah, I'm having an artist make some stuff next week, so I'm gonna change it up. It is simple and minimalistic, so I'll be interested to see if it helps or not in the long run to have an artist have done that as well.
Because you use the capsule artist for Chess Survivors as well, right? Which I thought came out great.
The Chess Survivors one was awesome. I did not use that for Hexagod. That was just me basically throwing together my art for Hexagod. So I'm working with a different capsule artist this time around, since the first one I did has made a lot of capsule artwork in between Chess Survivors. I was like one of his first ones, and now that was like $400, and now he's charging like $2,000 to $3,000, which to me means he's probably graduated from indie devs to like small indie studios and AAA companies, which is awesome for him. And he sent me the quote, and he's like, "Here's where my range is." Like, oof. I don't got $3,000 right now for that. So I was like, congratulations. I'm like, it's a huge moment for you to be able to like charge that much. That must mean you're in high demand. I'm very happy for you, but I'm sorry, I can't work with you.
Hey, you got him on the ground floor though. That was great.
I did. And I think the capsule artwork for Chess Survivors is one of the reasons it sold as many copies as it did, is because it's very striking and very well done, in my opinion. Cool. I don't have a finisher question or anything like that. I do have some quick round ideas in general. Is there a genre mashup that you want to see out there? For me, it's a ARPG extraction game. So like Path of Exile or like a Diablo game combined with an extraction mechanic where death is real and you lose all your shit on death and you have to go back and like reassemble all your items. That's my answer. Do you have a genre mashup that you want to see out there, regardless if you can make it or not? Just like what is something that you're interested in?
Yeah. So I don't make I very rarely think of games through genres. I think about feeling.
Sure. Sure.
So I'm dying for a game that makes me feel like I'm playing Cowboy Bebop, like a space bounty hunter, big vibes. I don't even know what it would look like, so I know I definitely can't make it. But something like a game comes out, I'm like, dude, I feel like Spike Spiegel right now. Like
Sure.
that's what I'm looking for.
Sure. I think that's a good answer. I mean, there's a lot of like games that do deliver that fantasy. You know, like not specifically that fantasy, but deliver a fantasy. Like Red Dead Redemption 2. Like you play that game, you're like, I'm a cowboy. Like I am a cowboy right now. Like going around being a cowboy, or like I don't know. There's Noita. You feel like a wizard who's making wands and blowing the screen up. Like there's fantasy in that, even if there's not story. Like in Noita, there's still fantasy that can be delivered through game mechanics and stuff like that. So. That's really cool. That's a good answer. What's a game in the last year that you were inspired by as a game developer?
I would say, well, make an extraction, obviously, Escape from Tarkov.
Sure. Does that mean are you using it as an excuse to go and like research by playing it? Like I'm researching right now.
Yeah, I'm like there's a new extraction game coming out called Arc Raiders, and I'm already
I was gonna check out this weekend. They're doing a playtest.
Yeah, I applied for it for research, of course.
For research. And if the tax person asks us, I bought the game for research.
Yeah, 100%. And then one that actually I always go back to is League of Legends. I think they are the best at capturing fantasies in the chant designs.
Yeah.
When like I play Zed, I feel like a ninja assassin. When I play Yasuo, I feel like, and they only have 4 buttons to work with.
Yeah. I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to end this phone call now because you are a Zed and Yasuo player. So
it's worse, dude. I'm an Echo main.
Oh gosh, I'm okay with an Echo main because a good Echo Uncle. So I played League for the last decade as well, so we could dive into that. But the thing I love about League is like any given champion, you could take their kit and then just go make a game off of it.
Yeah,
you can make a whole game where you are playing as Brand and you're just like igniting and spreading ignites around and doing stuff like you could have a game that is just exploring, being Alawi and spawning tentacles, and that's the gameplay that you like build a whole game around. But they have 160 champions that all feel unique and different, and it is something. If you're like struggling to find a combination, I'm sure a bunch of that probably means a bunch of your spells in your game are heavily inspired by some of the stuff they do and some of the mechanics they have.
The Brand E that bounces in the game, it's incredible.
Absolutely. Cool. Well, I guess the last question that I'm trying out for a speed round would be, how do you manage scope creep? That's the name of the podcast. It sounds like your first game was the result of someone asking for scope creep. And you have that means you had a very positive interaction with scope creep. But in the more negative side, how do you manage scope creep and your first project and maybe moving forward? What is your I guess the way you manage that beast?
I kind of winced when you asked that because I don't manage it. Like I said in my first game, there's town building, there's a rhythm heaven when you crafting,
thousands of combinations.
It's more of you got to know yourself. Like I know, like if I'm super excited about something, I will get it done, and it will make the game better. Then I'm okay with scope creep. Yeah. If it's outside scope creep and people start asking for the game, and like you were saying earlier, of like you have to explain it too much, or if it doesn't fit, chop it off.
Sure.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, man, like wait till you see all the things I'm building in an Echo. Like this game's not coming out for 10 years. Do you have a secret? Maybe I could learn here. Like cut it down to 8 years.
I think the secret is that I have to I'm a full-time developer, and so this is like I have a burn rate, right? If I'm this was last month was the first month that I turned a profit as a studio, which is just basically paying my mortgage versus how many games I sell. But like, because of that, it's put on constraints, and constraints create moments for decision making. And just trying to look at mechanics in games and really, really ask yourself if it fits the vibe and the fun that you want to give your players. And so I've just really learned that a lot with Hexagod is to take a step back, and if you're having a hard time with the mechanic, maybe the mechanic is the problem. It's not how you're presenting it. It's not the balance of it. It's not the interaction with other mechanics. Maybe it itself does not fit your game anymore. So that's it. I think it's just like being okay removing stuff, even if you've spent 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 months doing it. The sunk cost fallacy is real, and you can always just remove stuff to make the scope smaller then. And like refine your vision even further.
Making this your main income and job and stuff.
Yeah.
Definitely. Like I said, I'm a for fun dever. Like,
yeah.
I'm allowed to be stupid. You're doing something amazing over there, and that comes with responsibility.
But at the same time, I'm trying to keep it fun. I'm trying to make sure that like I'm doing this because like the journey has to be exciting and fun, and I have to, like you said, you're the next game you're making, you think is fun, and you're gonna make it because you're enjoying making it and having fun. Like if I'm not having fun making the game I'm making, then how the hell is the game gonna be fun for anybody else to play? Like if I'm sitting here like, oh, I need to make a Balatro clone because that game popped off, or I need to make my own Schedule 1 clone because that game popped off, but I don't want to make that game. If I'm force-feeding myself game dev, the end product's going to suck, right? Like, that's not why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it to chase money. I'm doing it because I want to have the journey that I enjoy doing.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that, because I've been noticing a trend in the indie scene of people being like, you shouldn't make what you want to make. You should make what's marketable or what's going to sell and make you money.
Yeah.
And I've been really pushing against that, because that's not what indie dev is about. That's like AAA.
The ideal game is a game that you want to make, a game you can make, and a game that people will buy.
Yeah. And that first one,
I think the first two are honestly the biggest ones. Is like in the can you make, you should be going for a game that you're like 50% sure of how to make, especially with your first few games, because you want to like grow and learn. If you just sit there and do like, I know 100% how to make this game, then you're not like growing as a developer still. And there's some cost to development of just like that growth and learning. So that's awesome that, I mean, because you have the freedom to make a game you want to make and not have a deadline, you get to like really optimize for I want to make this game, I think it'd be fun, and then I guarantee other people will also find it fun, and then they'll come and play it and sell it and see the IGN article come out and then go and wishlist it over on Steam, which is exciting.
Yeah. Unless I got a wish list, then I got to change the capsule art.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to at least get one from me, so...
okay, hey.
You can't say no wish list, but
net
maybe
positive.
No. Yeah. Very cool. Well, thanks for reaching out, and you've been a great member of the community on Twitch and Discord and stuff like that, and I'm excited to see updates for Echo Extract as you continue doing it. I wish you all the luck with IGN and whatever you're working on next. Is there anything you want to shout out that you're working on, or anything you want to do? We've talked a lot about it, but is there anything else you want to shout out here at the end?
First off, awesome for having me on. I know I just randomly messaged you and you're like down for it, and this has been an absolute blast, man. I've enjoyed this past hour and a half.
I looked up to you, I was like, it's probably been 45 minutes. Like, no, it's been double, which means it's a good conversation. I've been really enjoying it. Yeah. Cool,
no, it's been great. Thank you so much for having me on, man. And I'll definitely see you more in the Twitch chat. I'll be in there chirping.
Sounds good. Maybe we can do a follow-up episode after you release Echo Extract in a decade. Your words, not mine. Your words, not mine.
We'll see if you'll be as bold as me by that time.
Right. If you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed that podcast. It was oddly like talking to a friend or something like that. There were so many moments where I just felt both seen and heard and like on the same page with him, which is just so... I feel like that's such a rare thing when you meet someone for the first time to just like be on that same wavelength. So let me know if you have any questions down in the comments below. Make sure you go check out Scholar of the Arcane Arts and Echo Extract over on Steam. There'll be links below. Yeah, that's it. I hope you enjoyed this podcast, and I'll see you in the next one. I've been Aarimous. Stay scope creeped. I don't have an outro for this one, but I'll see you next time. Bye bye.